Spreadsheet scholars, princesses and princes of the point of sale. Welcome back to what I hope you'll find is another fun and valuable Excel tutorial. Now we'll continue to build out our point of sale system, and we'll learn a bunch of new concepts along the way, including how to use the Excel if function and how to work with complex formulas where we have a formula inside of another formula. Now here's a look at the worksheet that we're going to be building in this lesson. We're going to start out with the worksheet as we'd finished it at the end of the Point of Sale Part 2 video lesson. And in this lesson, we're going to add a drop down where you can choose if a firm is a nonprofit or not. And the reason we're doing this is because in my state, Massachusetts, firms that are nonprofits are not charged sales tax. And in the upper right, you can see that I've got a sales tax rate. So you can see that if I'm listed as a nonprofit, there's no sales tax calculated. But if I switch to saying that I am not a nonprofit, then I am charged sales tax. Now to do this, we'll learn Excel's if function. Now also, our company gives away free stuff at a particular order threshold. Order $99 or more and you get a free Ada Lovelace sticker. Order $2.99 or more and we'll also throw in a coin cell pennant. Also, if the customer spends more than $99, they get free shipping. If not, they're charged $9.95 for shipping. So what I'm demonstrating here is my initial order value is less than $99, and you can see that I have to pay for shipping and I get no free stuff. But if I order more than $99, I get free shipping and I get a free Ada Lovelace sticker. And if my order reaches $2.99, I get a free sticker and a free coin cell pennant. So let's learn how to do this. Buckle up for some big learning. Now we're going to begin with the worksheet that we'd finished at the end of the Point of Sale Part 2 video lesson. But if you don't have that, or if you just want to be 100% certain that you're using the same file that I'm showing here, you can visit our Google Drive at bit.ly/excel-starter-files, all lowercase. Find the file name Conditional Starter, right-click on that, download it to your computer, and open it in Excel. Then why don't we use Save As to change the name to Conditional Exercise. And before we can begin our lesson on conditional statements in Excel, we've got just a bit more work to do on this worksheet. So why don't we set this up as a challenge? It shouldn't be a tough one. The one thing that might trip you up is you might find that you can't edit your worksheet. But if you think back to how we ended the Point of Sale Part 2 lesson, you'll probably figure that out. Then follow these steps. Add a row after row number 2, add the text nonprofit in cell A3, merge across B3 through C3, add a row after row 13 with the text sales tax in D14. In B3, add a drop-down with two options, no and yes. Add titles, values, and formatting as shown in G1 through I7. Then name each of the cells with the names as shown here. So why don't you pause, give that a shot. And just in case you got tripped up, I'll demonstrate the solution really quickly so we can get into the good stuff. So first, if I try to insert a row when I right-click on a row number, I don't see the insert option. Oh yeah, that's because I protected this worksheet at the end of the previous lesson. But we know how to fix that. Just click the Review tab, and then click Unprotect Sheet. Then I'll right-click on row number 3, I'll select Insert, and I've just added a new row. Then in cell A3, I'll add the text Nonprofit. Then I'll select B3 through C3, head back to the Home ribbon, and we're going to merge across. So that's under Merge and Center, this pull down here. Merge across will merge the cells without centering the value inside of the cells. Then I'll right-click on row 14. I'll insert another row. In D14, I'll enter the text Sales Tax. And now let's create that drop down in B3. So I'll click on B3, then I'll head to the Data ribbon, click Data Validation, and under the Validation Criteria pull down under the Allow menu, I'm going to select List, and then in the source box here, just type in no, yes, and click OK, and we see that we've got a drop down triangle in this cell, and if you click and try it out, you can select yes and no, looking good. Then starting in G1, let's put in the labels and data that I showed on the slide. So for G1, I'm going to put in MA tax rate for my state, Massachusetts. Feel free to put in your own state if you'd like, but this is the sales tax rate. Make sure your state has a sales tax. Some states don't, because if you don't have any value in tax rate, then the exercise won't work properly. Then in G2, let's put shipping cost. In G3, we'll put in free shipping at, and I'll auto-fit the width of column G. In H1, our sales tax rate is 6.25%. The shipping cost in H2 is $9.95, and in H3, the free shipping threshold starts at $99. Then the labels in G5 through G7 are free stuff, Tier 1 and Tier 2. H5 is subtotal, I5 is item. I'll bold these labels and auto-fit the width of column H. And the Tier 1 subtotal value in H6 is $99, and the Tier 2 subtotal value in H7 is $299. Now for the item that you get in I6, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in an equal sign here, and I'm going to get the name of that value from our products worksheet. So I'll click on the products tab, and the tier 1 free item you get if you spend $99 or more is the Ada Lovelace sticker. So I'm going to click on B9, press return. Then in I7, I'll do pretty much the same thing. I'll say equals, then click on the products tab, click on the cell for coin cell pennant, press return, and that value is linked to the cell. Then I'm going to name all the cells as indicated on the slide. So B3 should be named nonprofit, and these are all one word. So H1 is going to be tax rate, H2 is going to be ship cost, H3 is free ship threshold, H6 is tier 1, H7 is tier 2, I6 is item 1, I7 is item 2, E12 will be subtotal, E13 will be discount, and E14 will be sales tax. And again, these cell names are just going to make it a little bit easier for us to read our formulas. Now at this point, it's probably useful to review how to change or correct any naming errors, and we do that under the Formula tab. The define name is grayed out, but that's because my formula bar is active, so I'll just click on another cell, and there we go. Now we see the define name pull down. In that menu, select define name, and in this box, you can click on any individual cell name. Then if you want to delete that name, just click on the minus button. There's no need for me to do that here, but it's good to know that we can do that. And if I wanted to change the name of any of these cell names, I would just type over the cell name in this field here and press OK. But since I have no changes, I'll just click on close. Now we're ready to talk conditional logic. Now this is sometimes referred to as Boolean logic, named after a 19th century mathematician named George Boole, who standardized this kind of math. Why the long face, George? You got a whole branch of math named after you. Well, despite Grumpy George here, Boolean math is simply true-false math. The results of conditional or Boolean expressions have one of only two values. They can either be true or they can be false. And knowing about this is super useful because many computer programs and programming languages also support some form of conditional or Boolean logic. Side note, in Excel, true equals 1, false equals 0. We won't use any tricks that use that technique for now, but it might come in handy in the future. So let's write a Boolean expression and see a true-false result. So first, let's click on cell C17 and we'll type a label, is nonprofit. Then let's put an expression in E17 that'll show true if B3 has a yes in it, indicating that the customer is a nonprofit. Otherwise, if there's anything other than a yes in cell B3, then we should return false. So we start a formula with a Boolean result just like any other formula with an equal sign. Then I'll click on B3, that's our cell named nonprofit, and the true-false result that we'll get will be evaluated if nonprofit equals yes. Now I'm going to deliberately create an error here just so that you can see this. I'm going to press return, and Excel gives me a $name question mark error, and if I click back in the cell and then click the yield sign icon, I see Excel is telling me that this is an invalid name error. Now the problem is, if I take a look at the formula in this cell, Excel thinks that yes is a named cell or range, and it can't find anything with the name yes. But fixing this is pretty easy. To distinguish a value as text instead of a name in my formula, all I need to do is put double quotes around the text. So with double quotes around the word yes, I can press return, and I see the result is false. And the reason why it's false is because I have no in cell B3. That's my nonprofit cell. But if I change the value in this cell to yes, then I see the result changes to true. There you have it, a most basic logical expression. Now let's put this knowledge to work by using Excel's if function. Now the reason we set this problem up this way is because in Massachusetts, nonprofit organizations are not charged sales tax. So we'll eventually calculate a sales tax dollar amount and put that in E14. But for starters, if the customer is a nonprofit, we'll put a 0 in E14. Otherwise, we'll put the sales tax percentage value in E14 since that customer should be charged a sales tax. So let's click in E14. That's where our if statement is going to go. Now we could type the function in directly, but let's use the formula builder. So we'll click on the formulas tab, and if is under the logical grouping. So let's click logical, then select if, and the formula builder opens up, and we see that the if statement has 3 parameters. Now this first is the logical test. This is where we enter our conditional or Boolean expression that will return either a true or a false. And then we have a field where we enter what we should do if the value is true, and under that we enter what we should do if the value is false. Now inside these value if true or value if false fields, we can enter a number, text, or even another formula to arrive at a calculated result. Now for our logical test, We're going to go ahead and check to see if B3, so I'm going to click there, and Excel enters the cell name as nonprofit equals, I'll type the equal sign, and then inside double quotes, I'll type the word yes. So if nonprofit equals yes, then that value result is true. So inside value if true, we should put a 0 in here since nonprofits aren't charged any sales tax. Otherwise, the value if false value will be, for now, I'm just going to click an H1 that shows our tax rate. Then we can click on done and we see 0.06. But hey, that's the same as 6.25% formatted as dollars and cents. The 0.25% is rounded out in dollars and cents formats. I could change this, but we eventually want to show this in dollars, so I'm going to leave that in here for now. But notice, if I go up to the nonprofit field and change that to yes, we see the sales tax shows as a dash. Again, this is dollar format, but that means that there's a 0 in there, and this is working great. So congratulations on your first if function. Now, it's also important to know that there are lots of different ways to get the same result. For example, if we check to see if nonprofit equals no instead of yes, we just flip the value if true and value if false values, then click done, and we test it out, and we see we get the same results, just checking for no instead of yes. Also note that when we check to see if a cell is equal to a value in quotes, the case doesn't matter. So if I switch back to checking to see if nonprofit equals yes, but I spell yes in all caps, then I'll make sure that I flip my if true and if false values and I click on done. If I select yes from the drop-down menu, I show a 0 for sales tax, even though my formula is checking for a value of yes spelled in all caps. So case doesn't matter. Now, because I've got the drop-down list with data validation, I can't type yes in with all caps in here, but yes with a capital Y is considered to be equal to yes in all caps. Now also know that when we work with conditional or Boolean logic, there are a bunch of different operators we can use. So we already know that the equal sign means equal, and we've also seen greater than or equal to and less than or equal to, but what about not equal? Well, that's just the less than symbol and the greater than symbol back to back. So let's try it out. If we click back on E14, then in our formula builder, we can switch the logical test from an equal sign to less than and greater than back to back for not equal. And then since we're checking the opposite condition, not equal instead of equal, make sure we flip our value if true and value if false fields, then click on done. And we see when nonprofit is yes, we have no sales tax, but if we change nonprofit to no, we get the tax rate. Also note that if we delete the value in B3, remember when we set up our data validation list, we accepted the default option, which was to ignore blanks. So Excel will accept this, but it will treat it as if it's no, or really anything other than yes, and it'll show the tax rate. Data validation makes sure that we can't put anything else in there. So if you try to put, for example, an uppercase Y, we'll get an alert that says that that won't work. So we just went through a few examples using if, but hopefully that helps fill out your understanding of how the if function works. So as we mentioned, we don't just want the sales tax percentage in here, we want to use that percentage to come up with the dollar amount of sales tax that the customer has to pay. And that value is based on the amount the customer is paying our company. So specifically, if the customer is charged sales tax, then the sales tax in dollars should be calculated as the subtotal minus the discount, that's how much the customer is paying our company, and then we multiply that value by the tax rate percentage. Now those changes are pretty straightforward. If we've clicked in cell E14, we see our if function in the formula builder, and we just change the value if true from just tax rate to instead say subtotal minus discount times tax rate. Now remember what we learned about precedence. Multiplication is calculated before subtraction, even though it comes after the subtraction in this formula. So if I click on done now, I don't get the result that I expected. The customer should never be paying a tax bill that's nearly as much as the cost of the order itself. So how do I fix this? I should just put parentheses around what I want to calculate first. That's the subtraction part of the equation. So we've got parentheses around subtotal minus discount. We calculate that first, then multiply it by tax rate. Now press done, and we get the appropriate dollar amount in our tax rate. And if we switch nonprofit from no to yes, we see that the tax rate switches from being calculated to 0 for nonprofit. We can switch it back to say that it's not a nonprofit. The tax is calculated again. Looking good. And now that we have the dollar amount that the user's paying in sales tax, we can fix our total value. So if we click in E15, the formula in there should be E12 minus E13 plus sales tax. Now notice it says E12 and E13. It doesn't say the names of the cells. That's because we wrote this formula before we named the cells. But if you want to change the formula so it shows the cell names, that's totally fine. I'm just going to press return here, and we see the point of sale system is looking good with the total value calculating correctly. Now let's show the free stuff that our company is going to give our customer if the customer's order, that's the subtotal minus the discount, reaches the minimum tier level to get free stuff. So if they reach the tier 1 threshold, that's $99, we give them a free Ada Lovelace sticker. And if they reach tier 2, that's $2.99 on our worksheet, they get the sticker plus a coin cell pendant. Now I bet you already have the knowledge to pull this off, so let's issue a challenge for at least this first part. For this first challenge, write a formula in A11. So if the customer's subtotal minus discount reaches tier 1, we show the words free stuff, all caps with an exclamation point in cell A11. And this slide shows examples of how the worksheet will look if the user reaches the threshold versus if they don't reach it. You got the skills to work this out. Pause, give it a shot, and now let's look at a solution. So let's click in cell A11, that's where our formula will go. We'll head up to the formula ribbon, we'll select logical, and then if, and the formula builder opens up with an if function, and the logical test is if subtotal minus discount is greater than or equal to H6, and when we click that cell, we see that the cell name tier 1 shows up in our formula, and our value, if true, will simply be free stuff, all in caps with an exclamation point, but we've got to put that inside of double quotes, and the value, if false, can't be left blank. But in order to get nothing to show up, we learned how to do that in a previous video lesson. Remember the empty string? That's just 2 double quotes with nothing between them. Then we click on done, and free stuff shows up in A11. Now I'm going to get rid of all of these other orders, and up here I've got 7 coin cell pennants. Now that's enough for the tier 1 threshold, so I can still see free stuff, but if I switch this quantity to 5, free stuff goes away as expected. Switch it back to quantity 7, free stuff comes back. Looking good. Now let's try an even more aggressive challenge, but I think you're up for it. If the user's subtotal minus discount is greater than or equal to the tier 1 threshold, then show item 1 in C11. If the user's subtotal minus the discount is greater than or equal to the tier 2 threshold, then show item 1 and item 2 in C11 like I'm showing here. Otherwise, C11 should be empty. Now why don't you pause, give this a shot, and if you resume but got stuck, here's a quick hint. Do you think you could put an if function inside one of the parameters of another if function? You can. So if you want to try again, you can pause one more time, try that out. After you give it a shot, we'll resume. And now together, let's build out one way to solve this challenge. So we click C11, that's where we'll enter this formula. And in the formula ribbon, we'll select logical and if. And now let's build this out in stages. First, let's check to see if our subtotal minus our discount is greater than or equal to tier 2. And if that's true, then let's just show the item 2 in cell C11 for now. Otherwise, again, just for now, let's show item 1 in C11. So to make that happen, the logical test should be subtotal minus discount is greater than or equal to tier 2, and the value, if true, should be item 2. Otherwise, the value, if false, will be item 1. And then if we click on done, my worksheet is at the tier 1 threshold, so we see the Ada Lovelace sticker show up in C11, but if I change my quantity to, say, 700, I see coin cell pennant shows up in C11. That's what I'd said I wanted just for starters. So switch it back to quantity 7, we get Ada Lovelace sticker. Switch it to quantity 700, we get coin cell pennant. Looking good. And now let's build out a little bit more of that complexity as we try to reach our end goal. Now, one thing that we'd mentioned was that if the customer order reaches the tier 2 threshold, we should show both item 1 and item 2. Well, how do we do that? Well, we actually covered this in an earlier lesson, but it's easy to forget and try, well, maybe this. Why don't we change value, if true, to item 1 plus item 2, then press done. And is that going to work? Let's change the quantity to 700 again, and oh no, we see a value error. Why is that? Well, Excel can't add together item 1 and item 2 because those are 2 text values. They're strings, and the plus operator simply won't put those 2 values together. But if you think back to one of our earlier lessons, we'd mentioned the term for combining blocks of text, which are otherwise known as strings, and that term is concatenation. And the operator in Excel for concatenation isn't the plus sign, it's the ampersand. It's this guy here, the squiggly one that's above the number 7 on the US keyboard. So we'll say item 1 ampersand item 2, we'll click done, and we're getting close. We have these 2 items concatenated together, but we want them to be separated by the word and we also want to make sure that we have a space at both ends of the word and, so that the words aren't all squished together. But now we know how to do that. We'll use our buddy the ampersand symbol, otherwise known as the concatenation operator, and in value, if true, we'll change this to read item 1 ampersand, then double quotes, space, and, space, double quotes, so we're adding this phrase and with spaces and 2 ends, and then ampersand item 2, we'll click done, and this looks great. We're getting close. So let's change the quantity to 7, and you get just the Ada Lovelace sticker. Let's change the quantity to 700. We're way above the tier 2 threshold, and you can see that we get the sticker and the coin cell pennant, and it's listed exactly as we want that text to be expressed. But what happens if we fall below tier 1? Well, that would happen if we enter quantity equals 5, and oh no, we still have the Ada Lovelace sticker. But we shouldn't have anything in there because we've fallen below the tier 1 subtotal. So how do we solve this? Well, to do so, we're going to create a nested if function. What we're going to do is we're going to take the if function that we've already written that works properly, and we're going to put this inside one of the parameters of another if function. And this first or outermost if function is going to check to see if the user is below tier 1. And if they are below tier 1, then the value is true is going to simply show the empty string. But otherwise, the value is false isn't going to show a simple value. It's going to run this other if function, which will show either item 1 and item 2 or just item 1. So let's do it. Now let's see, the quantity that I have here for starters isn't that important, but I'll go big. I'll put 700 into the quantity. And then while I'm clicked in cell C11, I'm going to highlight and cut out my working if function. Everything except for the equal sign. Now we don't use the equal sign when we add functions as parameters inside of other functions, nested function style. And remember, to cut, it's Command X on the Mac, Control X on Windows. Then I'm going to backspace to delete the equal sign. I'll head up to the formulas ribbon and select logic and if. And then over in the formula builder for my logical test, I'll say subtotal minus discount is less than tier 1. And if that's true, my value, if true, will simply be the empty string. But my value, if false, will be the function that I cut out. So I'm going to paste that into this field here with Command V on Mac or Control V on Windows. Again, no equal sign in front of this function. And if we look up here in the formula bar, we see an if function that has another if function as its last parameter, the value if false parameter. Now, by the way, if I click somewhere inside of the second if function and then I click on the FX symbol in the formula bar, the formula builder shows just those values for the innermost function. But if I click back somewhere on the outermost function and click FX, I see the outermost function in the formula builder with the innermost function inside of the value if false parameter. So that's just a nice pro tip to be aware of. If you click on different parts of the function and click on FX, you'll be able to zoom in or zoom out of that function. So we can click the done button and we got a quantity of 700. That's tier 2. So we're getting both the sticker and the pennant. Now let's change this quantity to 7. We get just the sticker. And now the moment of truth, let's change quantity to 5 and woohoo! No free stuff in either A11 or C11. Now we like free stuff, so let's head back, change quantity to 700, and we see the 2 free items are listed. Nested if function works perfectly. That's pretty advanced stuff, Your Excellency. Hope you're feeling the power of your skills. Now also down here in row 17, we just did some tests for Boolean logic. So I'm going to delete these 2 cells in is a nonprofit. And now all that's left is a final challenge. And I'm sure you can do this. Your instructor might ask you to submit the results for homework, so I'm not going to show you the solution here. But the challenge is to add a row after row 14, put the word shipping in D15 as I'm showing here, then in E15, calculate the amount to be charged for shipping. If the subtotal minus discount meets the free ship threshold, then shipping should be 0. They get free shipping. Otherwise, the shipping cost should be the amount in ship cost. That's $9.95 on this worksheet. And then let's finish things off by calculating E16 as subtotal minus discount plus sales tax plus shipping. Now that shouldn't be too tough for you to do on your own. Good luck with that. And once again, we've dropped some significant spreadsheet knowledge, and what I hope you found was another useful Excel tutorial. We learned to use Boolean logic in Excel, we learned to test if a cell contains specific text, we learned the if function, we worked with conditional operators, equals, greater than or equals, less than or equals, and not equal. We reviewed concatenating strings with the ampersand operator, and we covered nested functions. Those are functions inside of other functions, and specifically we worked with nested if statements. With those skills, you should be feeling like spreadsheet royalty, Your Excellency. Keep at it, and be excellent to each other.